Self-esteem doesn't collapse from one big failure. Most of the time, it leaks. Quietly, gradually, through the ordinary things you say on an ordinary day. Other people hear those words and think nothing of it. But your mind hears every single one. And here's the part that makes it worse. We actually believe we're being humble. We say these things to fit in, to avoid standing out, to make sure we're not a burden to anyone. So we put ourselves down first, before anyone else gets the chance. But when that becomes a pattern, it stops being humility. It becomes self-erasure. Today, we're going to talk about the specific phrases that people with low self-esteem repeat without even realizing it. And this isn't just a "stop saying bad things about yourself" lecture. We're going to look at exactly what to say instead, starting today. More people live this way than you'd think. Someone pays them a compliment, and they immediately reject it. They need to ask for something, and they apologize before the sentence even starts. They haven't even tried something yet, and they've already decided they can't do it. Here's what's strange, though. The people who talk this way are rarely the ones who actually lack ability. If anything, they're often the most perceptive people in the room. Responsible, thoughtful, high standards for themselves. The problem isn't their character. The problem is that all of those good qualities keep getting turned inward. Like a blade pointed at themselves. They'll comfort a friend going through a hard time without hesitation. But when it comes to their own struggles, they're cold. Almost cruel. That gap is exactly what eats away at self-esteem. The most common phrase sounds like this: "That's just how I am. I've always been bad at meeting new people. I've never been good at sticking with things. I'm just not the kind of person people fall for." Here's why those sentences are dangerous. They take whatever you're going through right now and turn it into your permanent identity. The truth is, most of the time, you're not just that kind of person. You're someone who currently has that pattern. That's a completely different thing. But the moment you say, "That's just how I am," the door closes. People gradually become whoever they keep introducing themselves as. Say, "I've never been able to do that," long enough, and you'll stop trying. Because you've already set the mood inside yourself. Why bother attempting something that's already decided? Here's what that looks like in real life. Someone says, "You're going to crush that presentation." And you immediately say, "I'm terrible at public speaking." A friend says, "Let's work out together." And you laugh it off with, "I always quit after 3 days, I'm hopeless." Someone shows genuine interest in you, and before they can say anything else, you say, "Why would you even like someone like me?" From the outside, it can look like self-awareness. Like you're being realistic, grounded, no nonsense. But what's actually happening is that you're preemptively giving up on your own potential. You're closing the door on yourself before anyone else gets the chance to. You feel safer that way. But every time you do it, you get a little smaller. The fix is simpler than you'd expect. Cut the word "always" out of those sentences. Not, "I've always been bad with people." Try, "I tend to take a while to warm up. But once I do, I'm good." Not, "I've never been consistent." Try, "Building consistency is something I'm still working on." Not, "I can't do that." Try, "I haven't gotten comfortable with it yet." These sound like small changes. They're not. Always closes the door, yet leaves it open. Always is an identity, yet is a process. And here's the thing about human psychology. Changing your identity feels nearly impossible. But getting through a process? That's manageable. So stop describing yourself as a fixed, finished product. Start describing yourself as someone who's still in motion. And before you think this is about forcing fake confidence, let me be clear. Nobody's asking you to walk around saying, "I'm the best," or "I'm perfect." You don't have to do that. Because self-esteem doesn't come from exaggerating yourself. It comes from stopping the distortion. We're not asking you to say you're great at things you struggle with. We're asking you to stop treating everything you haven't mastered yet like it's your permanent fate. That one shift alone changes the entire atmosphere inside your own head. Now, there's another phrase that comes up constantly. "Oh, it was nothing. I just got lucky. Anyone could have done that." It's really not a big deal. This is what comes out when someone gives you a compliment. Someone says, "You did an incredible job today," and you say, "No. I just got lucky." Someone says, "That outfit looks amazing," and you say, "I got it on clearance." Someone says, "You're so thoughtful," and you say, "Oh stop, anyone would have done the same." It looks like modesty. It can even seem polite. But something strange starts to happen when you keep doing this. Your effort stops feeling real. Your strengths start feeling like accidents. Your wins feel like they belong to someone else. Good things happen, and somehow they still don't reach you. Because you're the one erasing them. You worked hard for something, and then you personally delete it. This pattern is especially brutal for people who pour everything into what they do. You stay up all night preparing a presentation. It goes beautifully, and you tell yourself, I just got lucky. You spend a long time finding the right words to comfort someone. And it actually helps them, and you think, that's just basic human decency. Your body did the work. But your mind never collected the reward. And that's why burnout hits so fast for people like this. The person who should be acknowledging your effort the most is you. But you keep looking away. Receiving a compliment well isn't arrogance. It's actually a social skill. A relational one. When someone compliments you, they're sharing something genuine. They're offering a moment of real connection. And when you keep pushing it away, they feel awkward. And you've subtly cut yourself down again. So practice just receiving it. Thanks, I really appreciate that. That means a lot, thank you. I put a lot of time into that, so I'm glad it landed. That's it, that's enough. It's not bragging, it's just not lying about what actually happened. The first few times, it will feel uncomfortable. You'll want to add, but at the end, you'll want to say, I just got lucky, or it was really nothing. When that urge hits, try sitting with it for 1 second. Just accept the compliment. Short, clean, done. That small act teaches you something you might not have let yourself believe. You're allowed to be seen. You're allowed to be recognized. And you don't have to apologize for it. That feeling, stacked up over time, is where real self-esteem lives. There's one more pattern, and this one might be the sneakiest of all. Sorry, I hope this isn't too much to ask. I'm probably just being sensitive. This might be silly, but I feel bad even bringing this up. You hear these phrases when someone's about to ask for something, share an opinion, or admit they're hurt. Someone crowds you, and instead of just saying, excuse me, you start with, I'm so sorry, could you maybe just? You need to check on a deadline. And you say, sorry to bother you again, I feel terrible asking. Your partner does something that genuinely stings, and you start with, I'm probably being overdramatic, but I was kind of hurt by that. It sounds gentle, considerate, non-confrontational, but what it's actually doing is making you doubt yourself before you've even said a word. You're telling the world, and yourself, that your feelings might not be valid. That your needs might be an inconvenience. That you showing up might already be a problem. And here's what happens over time. The people around you start taking cues from the way you present yourself. If you don't treat your own words as important, why would anyone else? People read the energy and language faster than they realize. When you always apologize before asking for something, your requests become low priority. When you always preface your feelings with, I might just be overreacting, your feelings become up for debate. So people with low self-esteem keep wondering why they feel disrespected. And they don't realize they've been accidentally teaching others how to treat them. Here's what you need to remember. Sorry is for when you've done something wrong. It is not the price of admission for existing. Asking a question is not wrong. Making a request is not wrong. Saying you're hurt is not wrong. Drawing a boundary is not wrong. But somewhere along the way, a lot of us started feeling like simply having needs was some kind of imposition. And when that belief gets wired in deep enough, it becomes this quiet conviction. I should always stay small. I should step back whenever I can. I shouldn't ask for too much. You can spend your whole life being considered so easy to get along with, while slowly disappearing from the inside. The fix here is straightforward. Replace apologies with gratitude or direct requests. Instead of, sorry I'm late, thanks for waiting. Instead of, sorry to keep asking, but could you explain that again? Can you walk me through that one more time? I want to make sure I've got it right. Instead of, I'm probably being too sensitive, but I want to be honest, that comment bothered me. Instead of, I feel bad asking, but hey, I have a favor to ask. Same content, completely different energy. You go from someone who's apologizing for taking up space to someone who knows they have something worth saying. That shift matters more than it seems. Because self-esteem isn't built by shouting your feelings at full volume. It's built by refusing to silence them in the first place. Now, you might be thinking, but people like humble people. Being too confident is off-putting. And you're right, that confidence misread as aggression is uncomfortable to be around. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something much quieter. Not putting yourself down, not giving yourself permission to be cruel about your own potential. Speaking about yourself without erasing yourself. High self-esteem doesn't look like someone who's loud and boastful. It looks like someone who's on their own side. Someone who doesn't steal credit from themselves. Someone who doesn't mock their own emotions. Someone who doesn't treat their own needs like a burden. That person doesn't have to announce anything. They just feel solid. Here are 2 simple practices you can start today. Keep it easy. The first one is the 3-second pause. The moment, "That's just how I am," "Oh, it was nothing," or "Sorry to even ask," is about to come out of your mouth. Pause for 3 seconds. Then ask yourself one question. Am I about to tell the truth, or am I about to put myself down? That one question changes everything. "That's just how I am" becomes "I haven't gotten there yet." "It was nothing" becomes "Thank you." "Sorry to bother you" becomes "I have a question." Your words feel like they just appear out of nowhere. But there's a small window in there, and that window is enough. The second practice is to speak in evidence, not verdicts. When self-esteem drops, people tend to judge themselves in huge, sweeping statements. "I'm just not a people person. I'm not attractive. I'm a mess." Big, absolute, and completely unprovable. So swap the verdict for the observation. I struggle to find the right words in today's meeting. I get nervous in new social situations. I have a hard time expressing interest in people I like. Something interesting happens when you do that. It stops feeling like a life sentence and starts feeling like something you can actually work with. "I'm not attractive" is a court ruling. "I have trouble expressing warmth" is a skill you can practice. Stop judging yourself. Start observing yourself. It's a subtle change, and it's quietly powerful. There's one more thing worth naming before we wrap up. Self-deprecating humor. "I'm such a disaster. That's so me. Honestly, I'm hopeless. I mean, what do you expect from someone like me?" It gets a laugh. It breaks the tension. It makes you seem relatable. But remember who hears it most. You do. Everyone else laughs and moves on. But the sentence stays in you. So yes, a little self-aware humor can be endearing. But when it becomes a habit, when it becomes your default mode, it stops being funny and starts being a method of disappearing. And there's one last pattern worth calling out. People with low self-esteem often build their escape route before they even try something. "Even if I fail, I wasn't really expecting anything anyway. If they say no, I'll just tell myself I figured as much. If it hurts, I'll just act like I'm fine." But here's what research in psychology actually shows. Bracing for impact doesn't make the landing softer. It usually makes the aftermath longer. Because the failure itself isn't always what does the most damage. It's the way you talk to yourself after. Stumbling is painful, that's just life. But stumbling, and then saying, "See, this is proof you were never going to make it," that's a different kind of wound entirely. So before we learn to do life perfectly, we need to learn how to stop being brutal to ourselves when it goes wrong. Here's the thing about self-esteem that most people get backwards. It's not about walking around feeling amazing about yourself. It's not, "I'm incredible," or "I'm special." It's much quieter than that. It sounds like, "I made a mistake, but that doesn't make me worthless. I'm not good at this yet, but that doesn't mean I'm beyond help. Someone rejected me, but that doesn't cancel my right to be loved." That quiet, steady knowing, that's what self-esteem actually is. And it doesn't come from external validation. It comes from the language you use. When you talk about yourself, every single day. The way you introduce yourself. The way you handle your own mistakes. The way you receive a compliment. The way you make a request, draw a line, stand your ground. All of it is the language of self-worth. So starting today, you don't have to completely transform. You just have to stop being the first one to testify against yourself. Retire, "That's just how I am," as a verdict. Stop hitting delete on your own wins. Know that you don't need to apologize before you speak. It will feel awkward at first. It might even feel a little arrogant, and that discomfort will be strange. But that feeling isn't a warning sign. It's the sensation of stepping out of a habit that was never protecting you. It just felt familiar. What matters isn't doing this perfectly. Noticing it once is already halfway there. Try these 3 swaps today. Instead of, "I've never been good at that, I'm still learning." Instead of, "Oh, it was nothing, thank you." Instead of, "Sorry to even bring this up, there's something I want to say." Just those 3. And watch what changes, not just in how people respond to you, but in how you feel from the inside out. Because when you stop shrinking your language, the world stops shrinking you. It turns out people treat us pretty much in line with what we silently signal we'll accept. Self-esteem isn't something someone else can install in you. Other people's approval can fill the tank for a little while. But the fuel that actually lasts? It comes from how you speak to yourself when no one's watching. So the world might underestimate you sometimes. That's hard enough on its own. Don't be the one leading the charge. Choose the words that treat you as you actually are. Not smaller than the truth. Not bigger, either. Just accurate. And honestly, that's where real change begins. Not in one dramatic moment. In the quiet decision, made over and over, to stop disappearing yourself. One sentence at a time. Was there a line in today's video that hit a little close to home? Maybe a phrase you caught yourself using more than you'd like to admit? Drop it in the comments below. What's one thing you want to stop saying? And what are you going to replace it with? Your answer might be exactly what someone else needs to read today.